Welcome to On the Line with Jim Pyne. I'm Jim Pyne. This episode is brought to you by PLS Aviation, private aviation, perfectly executed. Now let's get on the line. Today we're on the line with Jim Pyne. We're joined by one of the most respected coaches in the history of college football, Utah's winningest and greatest coach of all time, with over 177 wins, several Coach of the Year awards, a future Hall of Famer from a football family of greatness, the head coach at University of Michigan, Coach Kyle Whittingham. Coach, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jim. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, no, great to be here, Coach. Right, I did some research for the show. Your dad, right? Your dad, you played for your dad. You coached with your dad. That had to be an awesome deal. My dad was special to me. My dad played and all that stuff. But what did your dad's influence on you that you do today? And what does your dad mean to you?
Wow. Well, first of all, I'm a defensive guy by trade. I was D coordinator, played linebacker, and everything that I subscribe to philosophically, fundamentally, technique-wise, schematically, I learned from him. In my opinion, he's the best defensive coach. Certainly the best defensive coach I've ever been around. And having the opportunity to play for him in college, like you mentioned, was awesome. And then we were able to reunite as fellow coaches a few years down the road. He was the defensive coordinator at Utah, and I was able to join him there as the D-line coach. We spent 1 year in that capacity, and then he went back to the NFL and was with the Raiders for 4 or 5 years. And when that was over, he came back to Utah. I was still there, and I was now the D coordinator, and so he was the linebacker coach for me. So we had a couple different dynamics there, but I'll tell you what, nobody was a better teacher, better motivator than Fred Whittingham, and I owe a ton of any success we've been able to have to him and what I learned from him.
Family's everything. Dad's everything. So I saw his nickname was Mad Dog, right? Is that?
Yeah.
What's that story, Coach?
Well, he had a couple nicknames: Fearless Fred, Mad Dog. But he was in the NFL for 8 or 9 years and was a tough guy, a throwback. One of the guys that it's just they're not around anymore. But he was a linebacker, played for the Rams, the Saints, and the Eagles and the Cowboys. And I guess the story has it was in New Orleans, and the Saints were just a brand new team, and he got picked up in the expansion draft. So he comes walking in the locker room, and he says, "Who's the toughest guy in here?" And a big guy named Doug Atkins. I don't know if you remember Doug Atkins.
Yeah.
He was a giant, 6'8", 300 pounds, and really one of the legends in the NFL. And he said, "I am." He jumped up and said, "I am." And my dad said, "Not anymore, you're not." So and a million stories just like that. They ran pretty hard, those Saints, down in the French Quarter, down in was it 67, 68, 69, right in that time frame.
Yeah, it's an interesting place. I coached a year down there with the Saints during
Katrina.
Did? Yeah, during Katrina, I was assistant O-line coach, and so I lived a year in New Orleans, and great people, great place, and
Was John Pease on that staff?
No, I know John. Yeah, John was later on. We were together, and no, he was on the staff. He was scouting of personnel. Yeah, great guy, Coach Pease. Yeah, it's great.
Very close friend of mine. Sorry, it was so sad when he passed, but he was with us at Utah on our staff there for several years, and what a great person.
Great person. Now, football is a small world. So, what's something your dad taught you? Is just one thing that you still use today? Something that you think your dad when you do it when you're coaching a team?
Man, just the being consistent with the players every day. That was something that he was very big on. Is they need to know what to expect every single day. Players thrive on structure and discipline, and always told me to just make sure you're the same guy every day, and that when they walk in the facility, they know what the expectations are, and that's one of the critical things to success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know family's everything. I have the same thing. I come from a football family. You have a brother on the staff, and you have your son on the staff too, which I know is pressure on them because, hey, they like that. I've been there. I worked in a company my brother was part of too, and you're like, hey, I got to perform and hold up to my end of the bargain here. But for you, Coach, you got two trusted people on your staff with everyone else too. Everyone's like brothers as coaches, but that's got to be a nice thing that you're developing your son still being the father relationship. What does that mean to you to have the family?
Yeah, it's awesome, and it's my wife is especially ecstatic that my son is here because we were in Utah for a lot of years, 30 plus years, and the last 8 years, my son Alex, who is on our staff, is the one that coaches linebackers here, was with the Chiefs with Andy Reid over there, and tried to get him over to Utah a few times when he was at the Chiefs. He said, "Dad, we're winning Super Bowls.
I'm having fun here, Dad."
great here. I'm working for Andy. And so I said, okay, I get it. And so 3 Super Bowl rings later, and I got this job. And I said, okay, now I need you to come over here and join the staff. And so he pulled up stakes, and him and his wife and 3 little grandchildren of ours
That's
moved
awesome.
moved to Ann Arbor. So, and I've got 11 grandchildren. The other 8 are in Salt Lake. So we were able to be around those 8 and not see Alex as much. And now we're around Alex's, and we don't see the other 8 very often. But it's a
Sure.
good thing. And family is huge for me. And my brother Freddie coaches the tight ends and does a great job. And he was with me at Utah, and he's been with me on the staff in one capacity or another for about 12 years. And really is great to be able to have that situation.
Sure, absolutely. And I did a little research. You went to BYU, coach, as a running back initially, right? A running back, then you switched to linebacker.
You've done
So
your
I,
homework. Yeah.
yeah, no, I was looking at that. So I know I know who you are and stuff. Tough, physical, hard nosed type stuff. Your dad's we just talked about. But what is that? Running back, linebacker. Those are two physical, tough positions. When I see that, and I know your style, you want to run the football and you want to stop the run because that's who you are, right? I mean that. Tell me about that. That's your style, right? You got to run and
100%.
stop the run.
100%. There's nothing more demoralizing to an opponent than to be able to, as for us to run the ball right down their throat, and there's nothing they can do about it. That was something we did very well last year at Utah. We ended up second in the nation in rushing, and it's different. When you run and you're physical, that seems to do more psychological damage than when you're throwing the ball. And so that's something I subscribe to. And then defensively, like you said, you got to stop the run. If you turn a team one-dimensional and say, hey, you can't run the ball, you're going to have to throw, then you can get them in third and long, get after the quarterback, and that's really the simple formula of what we do on defense.
Absolutely. Lavelle Edwards. So Andy Reid, I was on the show last week. Coach Reid said, hey, I said, Coach, what's the best advice you ever got from anybody? And he said, Lavelle Edwards told me, when he was whipping his butt, he said, you go, if you go to the head coach with a problem, have a solution too. Great advice. I use that in life and business for people. I tell people that work with me, hey, if you come with a problem, come with a solution. Let's think it through. We may not do what your solution is, but it's a good idea, right? So what
Sure.
did Lavelle Edwards mean to you, and what, maybe a story about him that you work today that you still think of?
Yeah, well, the opportunity to play for Lavelle was awesome. What a great man, great coach. Such a steadying influence on a program. It wasn't a roller coaster ride. It was very, very steady, very disciplined. And I think really what I learned from Lavelle was surround yourself with great assistants and let them do their job. Don't micromanage. And he had some terrific assistants come through there and did just that. He let them do their job. You hire them for a reason. You hire them because they're good football coaches. So let them coach. And that was one of the big takeaways. I had a chance to not only play for Coach Edwards would be a graduate assistant for him for a couple of years, and so that was a whole different perspective as well, and that was a great experience for me.
Yeah, and Coach, I was going to mention that too, how the world is so small. 1985, you're a GA at BYU. You're playing a bowl game against Ohio State, right?
Yes, sir.
Right, in Orlando, Florida. There was a 14-year-old kid in those stands. That was me. I was at that game.
Oh, you're just a youngster, man. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm 54 now. I'm not too young, but
you're a
yeah,
youngster. Trust me, you're a youngster.
I feel old. But yeah, I remember that, and the irony now. You're at Michigan or Ohio State. Anything you pull from that game that you remember one of your first games as a coach against Ohio State?
Yeah, well, nothing. I don't know if I'm pulling anything from it, but I certainly remember it. And man, they had some physical guys. Who was their nose guard? Was it Crumrow? I can't remember what his name was. But
Tim Crumry, maybe.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think he was a big physical nose guard, and they had a strong running attack. And
Keith Byers, I think, was
Keith
one of them.
Byers, that was
Yeah.
who it was. Yeah, that's who it
I remember
was.
as a kid.
I just remember that was one of the physical games. I believe it was low scoring. It was a while ago. I can't remember.
Yeah, 10-7. That was the
10-7.
final.
There you go.
Yeah.
So who won? I can't remember.
I
who
think
won.
they won. I think the BYU quarterback Bosco threw a few interceptions that game.
Okay.
But it was a close game. The interception at the end, so I was there. I remember that. Great
Got
stuff.
it.
But anyhow, it's just how the world is. But doing that too, like there's a guy on your staff, Luther Ellis. Luther, right? Luther's a great guy. You coached Luther at Utah. I played with Luther, played against him in the NFL, Detroit. Yeah, great guy, tough physical guy. And the interesting thing about Luther, a family guy's got 12 kids. I think 5 of them play NFL football.
Yes.
I mean,
Yeah.
so you're gonna tell me? I mean, I know he's a good coach because how do you have 5 kids play high level football? So he's a good man, good coach.
He is on the Utah staff. He has sons that play for him there, and it was, I just felt that, and he felt the best fit for him was to remain where he was. And you're right, he's got a talented group of sons, and I think if the one that is there at Utah ends up playing the NFL, I think that'll be six sons that played in the NFL at one time or another. Which you're hard pressed to find a family that has that many players in the NFL.
Yeah, unbelievable, unbelievable. So, Coach, your team's toughness, discipline, development, accountability. You said when it's a coach-led team can be good, but a player-led team can be great.
Right.
To talk to me about that philosophy?
Yeah, I believe the owners or the players got to take ownership. They got to govern the team, make sure that when you're out of practice, things are going the right way. If the coaches are doing all the yelling and screaming and getting guys going, then like I said, you can be okay, but you can't. I've never been a part of a great team that was not player-led and player-driven. And, we had some really good teams at Utah, some undefeated teams, and that was exactly the case. The players really took charge and made sure things got done the right way.
How do you create the player-led culture?
It's something you stress, and you talk about it every day, and pretty much as a coach, you're going to get what you emphasize. That's it's not 100% accurate, but most of the time, the things that you emphasize and stress to the players, they'll pick up on and realize that, hey, this must be important because he keeps talking about it. And so that's really, I talked about being consistent and letting having the players know what to expect every day when they come into the facility, and that's part of it is preaching the same things. If every single day you're preaching a new mantra or a new idea or whatever, then it's like what's important. And so you got to focus on what's important and continue to make that important, and they'll pick up on it.
Coach, can you manufacture toughness, or do you either have it or you don't?
I think that's a question that I'm not sure if there's an absolute answer. I think you can improve someone's toughness and let them figure out how to become comfortable when they're uncomfortable, with conditioning and things that you can do for them. But a lot of guys come to you, with great toughness, and that those are the guys that obviously you don't need spend a whole lot of time on, but in that regard. But I think it's both ways. Some guys can learn toughness, some guys can't. I mean, some guys just they are who they are, and they're in your program 4 years and really haven't got much tougher. But I think you can, to a certain extent, you can make a young man mentally and physically tougher.
Sure, and you built a career developing players over 4 to 5 years. In today's world of college, right? You got the NIL, the portal, and Michigan's a great, iconic school, brand and stuff. I'm sure it has the resources to kind of recruit and keep guys. How do you get guys in today's world? How are you doing that? How would you do that?
Yeah, it is tough because instant gratification is what they want, and instant results, and playing time. And Utah, you're right. We had a really good developmental system where we recruit guys with they may be lacking a little bit of weight or whatever the case may be, and soak them in the system for 2 or 3 years, and then they're ready to play. But very few guys are going to be patient enough to sit around for 2 or 3 years until their number's called. And so now at Michigan, we were able to recruit much more of the higher profile recruits, the 4 and 5 star guys who are much more ready to compete at the college level. And so it's a little bit different process here, but it still boils down to player development and recruit, develop, and manage. That's an axiom we had at Utah for many years. You recruit the raw talent and the right guys, that fit your program, develop those guys, and then you just got to continue to manage the players and make sure everyone's doing the right things.
Sure. And the weight room, Coach, I know that's a big room for you guys and you personally and stuff. A lot of people don't understand and know that the strength coaches spend probably the most time with a lot of the players than coaches on a daily basis and get to know these guys. I've been in the Michigan weight room. Beautiful. I mean, I don't know if you redid it a little bit or something, but
We did.
there was did you? Okay. There was a clock up there counting down the Ohio State game and all that stuff, which I get. But I love to hear what you did. But does the chalk fly in that room? It was a very pretty room. I remember my old days at Virginia Tech. We had a little room, but the chalk was flying. People were spitting and sweating. I was just one in Michigan. It's very pretty. So what changes did you make, Coach?
Yeah, well, the first thing is when we first got here, we strength tested, and that was probably the biggest eye opener for me of anything that I discovered here was the lack of strength of the football team. They just weren't very strong, and for whatever reason, they didn't bench press last year, and some other core lifts that we feel pretty strongly about. And so I brought my strength coach with me from Utah, Doug Alisaya, who I think is the best strength coach in the country, and he went to work with him. And in the last 7 months, we've made huge gains. I think that it was 98% of the team PR'd in just about every lift that we had that we tested them on. And football's a physical game, and you better have physicality, and it starts in the weight room. And I believe mental toughness starts in there as well. You talked about players spending more time with the strength coaches than probably their position coaches, and so a lot of the onus of that is on the strength staff to push these guys and start to develop and instill the mental toughness.
100%. That's shocking. They didn't bench press. I've never seen that in football. But Coach, what are your lifts? You got the bench, squat, clean. What do you got? What's your core?
No, that's the core right there. Bench, squat, clean. Yeah, a little bit of deadlift. But we're pretty basic, and now I say that, but we're really on the cutting edge, scientifically, of what we do in the weight room, and we've really got the weight room has changed so much in the last 30, 40 years. The methods and the tactics, but our guys do a great job. That's the bottom line.
It's funny you said. I remember in college we had an old strength coach too. Mike Gentry was a great guy, and we were going to play Oklahoma, and he told us, he's like, "Hey guys, the 45-pound weights in our room are 45 pounds in their room too." So you said it's changed, but the weights still weigh the same, right? Someone's got to lift them up and move them, right?
Exactly. Yep. The more things change, the more they stay the same.
That's right. So Coach Reed was at BYU around the same time you were. Great.
Yeah.
Coach coached me. Great man. Great guy. He's unbelievable success that he's had, and just I love his values and principles, and just the man he is. I guess did you guys cross paths at BYU? Were you teammates?
We were close, very close. We hung out together a bunch, spent a lot of time together, and very close to this day. And like I said, he gave my son his start in coaching, and really, working with Coach Reed and Spagnolia at Kansas City was an invaluable experience for my son. But me and Andy, he's a close friend. Like I said, we talk quite often, exchange texts, and we had some good times at BYU. I can tell you that.
Yeah, no, I know Coach Reed, amazing coach. He was an O-lineman, right? So you guys probably cracked heads a little bit, right? I mean,
yeah.
I love it. Those are the best friendships, right? Guys that you battled each other in practice, and then you hung out after practice. That's great stuff, Coach. So you're at Michigan now. You take over. Right? A big thing, people listen, leadership transition, right? You've transitioned. You were retiring at Utah. Incredible run out there.
Not retiring, stepping down.
No, okay. That's right. That's right. Step down. That's right. And then you transition now to where you're at right now. How do you handle, and how to just advice for people transitioning from one thing to the next? What do you do, Coach? How do you handle transition?
Well, first of all, I haven't had a lot of transition because I was at Utah 31 years.
Right.
So I was in a place or two before that. But first of all, coach what you know. Just stick to who you are and what you believe in, and don't deviate. And so that was, we talked about John Pease before we went on the air, and he taught me that. He says, you believe in what you're doing, you feel like you're doing the right things, then keep doing them. And you can't panic when things don't go exactly the way you want them. And if you hit some bumps in the road, you can't wholesale change everything, and because that's not the answer. And so, bottom line is stay true to what you believe and coach what you know, and don't have confidence in that, and don't deviate from that.
Sure. Hey, Coach, I played for 9 years. I coached for 3 in the NFL. Then I went out in the business world after that. It was my path. And one of the first stops I did, I worked for IMG. I sold Michigan and Florida. I sold so I understand Michigan, the largest living alumni base. It's powerful, the Block M, the whole deal, right? But I'd say this, politely nice, a confident group that, we're Michigan. They recruited me in high school, Gary Mola and stuff. But interesting for you going in the room, and I know how this works, and you're a humble guy, a good guy. You go in the room, Michigan looks at, this guy's from Utah, whatever, just that. So, Coach, you were 3-0 against Michigan, right? As a head coach, right?
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, so that's the credibility, respect. I don't care, you walk in those rooms, Michigan's a confident group, but you were 3-0. I mean, what does that mean to you? And it's got to add a little chest out, like, hey, if you guys are going to give me a little heat, like, I know who you guys are, but we figured you guys out too, right?
Yeah. That gave me a little bit of credibility going in, and the players, I think that helped with the buy-in, because that's 90% of it. Anytime you get to a new situation, buy-in from the players is going to be critical, and especially buy-in from the top 10%. If you get the top 10% of your players, as far as the top the best 10% as far as talent, and they're in, then everything seems to follow suit. And so, having a 3-0 record against Michigan certainly helped with that buy-in factor. And hey, this, maybe these guys do know what they're doing. So,
100%, yeah, street cred. That's everything in those locker rooms. This guy, the other coaches I've had on have been like, hey, you can stand up in front of these teams, but they're going to figure out real quickly. In a week, it'll take them. If you don't know your stuff, you're not a guy. You're going to lose the locker room, I'm sure. But 3-0 and who you are, the toughness, the weight room, I love that. That's hats off to you and all that. So I guess, Coach, when you're recruiting in Michigan, you touched on it, gets a lot of 4 and 5 stars, right? But you've probably made a living off 3 stars, no stars at Utah, right?
yes.
How do you handle that, especially today with the NIL guys? You're negotiating, you're paying guys. What's your thought on that? The 3 stars. Would you rather make a 3-star into a great player, or the 5-star comes in? Does he live up to his ability? I guess, what's your thoughts on all that?
Well, there's arguments for both, and I think it depends where you're at. Because some schools you're not gonna get the 4 and 5 stars. They're not gonna go there. It's not a high enough profile university or program or whatever the case may be. And so at Michigan, in order to compete with who we got to compete with, we've got to get the best of the best in recruiting. College football is all about recruiting. 90% of your success or your lack thereof is going to be tied to recruiting. If you have issues in your program, you can trace it back to recruiting mistakes. If you're winning championships, you trace it right back to really good evaluation and recruiting the right way. And so recruiting is absolutely critical and tantamount. So something we do every day. There's 365 days a year now. You're recruiting in some way, shape, or form every single day. And there's still a place for developing players at a place like Michigan, but you better have some of the ready-made, really high-profile guys as well that are ready to come in and contribute very soon.
Yeah, can you coach today's player the same way you did 20, 30 years ago? How's that?
I've been asked that question a lot and thought about it a lot. And, I think basically kids haven't changed that much. They're still young men and trying to figure out who they are and that type of thing. But certainly the NIL, the transfer portal, the dynamics of the game have changed, and it's nothing. It doesn't even resemble what the game was like 6-7 years ago. I mean, it's so dramatically different, and I think there's bigger changes on the horizon than what we've experienced. I think there's going to be a massive overhaul here pretty quickly, and because what we got going right now is just not sustainable. I mean, NIL budgets and expenses are going up 20, 30, 40% a year. You're going to have in this next recruiting cycle, the 27 signee class, probably a dozen 50 million plus rosters in the country, and it's just out of control, and it's not sustainable, like I said. And so I think there's going to, you almost have to blow up the whole system and start over and get some guardrails and some structure to it, because right now there is none. It's the Wild West, as you hear over and over. People use that term, and it's just it can't continue down this road because it just won't work. The math doesn't work.
Right. No, the system's broken, in my opinion. I mean, the conferences need to align, but everyone's competitive, right? Every school wants to beat everyone, so no one can agree. And I guess, Coach, how much of your time is spent? It's a business now. And in the past, you got to raise money or help the school raise money. How much of your time, especially with what we're talking about, you're paying the players, how much of your time versus 20 years ago is spent raising money?
Yeah, well, this summer was incredibly hectic. I was all over the country, literally. I mean, we had, and it's twofold. It's trying to raise money, obviously, and then trying to connect with the alumni and let them know what we're all about and who we are. And so we were on the road. I was on the road almost the entire June and a lot of July, just going throughout the different alumni chapters and talking and speaking to them and educating them as to who we are and what hopefully they can expect at Michigan, and also at the same time saying, hey, again, what I told you, recruiting is the most important thing in college football, and NIL is the most important facet of recruiting. And so if you want to put together these really good classes and stay competitive, you gotta step up to the plate. And even if it's distasteful, I mean, a lot of people don't like NIL and think it's ridiculous, but it's not going away, at least not right now. And so if you want to stay competitive, like it or not, you got to embrace it, because you either embrace it or you embrace irrelevancy. That's where you're going.
Right, no question. Coach, we're about 4 weeks away from the opener, Western Michigan. Are you guys working on them right now? I'm sure you've been working all offseason, kind of building up packages for them. What are you going to do? What you can do? And then you got, I think, some big games right after Oklahoma stuff, but you're focused on Western Michigan. So 4 weeks. You guys, is two-a-days anymore? Is all one-a-days?
Yeah, no two-a-days. Unfortunately, Jim, you get, I used to love two-a-days.
Yeah, me too.
Even as a player, I mean, it was just the grind. I relish the grind, but we're getting ready, and we have not. It's still really early. We're only 2 practices in. We haven't broken into scout teams and that type of thing yet for full-on preparation. But we definitely have a game plan, at least a preliminary game plan set up, and a few minutes of each practice is devoted to the looks they're going to see on September 5th. But that won't go wholesale until about 2 weeks out from the game. That's when it'll all focus in on the one opponent.
Sure. No, and you came in about 7 months ago. Was some issues before at Michigan. You're again, Urban Meyer. I know you coached with Coach Meyer. I loved his quote. Said Michigan fell into the right guy. Right. I mean, you're in my opinion, a perfect, disciplined, structured, hard nosed, credible guy. You come in. How's that whole transition been? That's been a big transition, maybe from Michigan to you. How's that whole process been?
It's been really good. I was so impressed with the players here. When I first got the job, they were on the bowl site down in Orlando. I flew down to the bowl site and interviewed every player on the football team. It took me 3 days, 8 hours a day to get it done. But I was so impressed with the type of young man that's here at Michigan. They were tuned into their academics. All of them knew their GPA and what they were going to do with their major. And am I going to go to grad school and this and that? So I was thoroughly impressed with their attitudes. They were respectful, and it was just something that, because I wasn't sure what to expect. Was it going to be a bunch of entitled guys, 4- and 5-star guys that were, just had a different attitude. But these guys are hungry to play football. The issues that have been surrounding the program were not player driven. I mean, the players had no issues. I mean, they, knock on wood, as soon as you say something, then you get a call at 2 a.m. in the morning. But it was quote unquote the adults in the room that were having the issues, and that's one of the first messages I brought is, hey, we're going to put the drama to bed and just start, going to school and playing football, and while you're here and not having all the distraction, and they are just craving that. And to their credit, like I said, all through the distractions, for lack of a better word, they held strong, and they managed to win 9 games last year through it all. And so, to their credit, they've handled it very well. And it was
sure. Again, I guess Andy Reid. I love talking about Coach Reid. You've discussions with him. He left Philadelphia, went to Kansas City. Great things. Is there any discussions with him? Advice that he gives you to kind of help you with transitions or what you do? What do you? I guess, you and Coach Reid, anything you can glean off of him and his success?
Yeah, he's one of the all-time best to ever do it, and share ideas quite often. And but mostly when we talk, it's just catching up and talking about old times. And I've gone out. When he was at Philly, I went out to see him there, and then I've been out, obviously in Kansas City with my son there. I probably went to 20 games over the past 7 or 8 years, and every Super Bowl they've been in, I've been at that. So just having him as a sounding board and a friend has been invaluable for me. And he's got he's just done such a great job wherever he's been, and you talk about a shoe-in Hall of Fame coach. I mean, he's as good as there's been.
Yeah, no, great man, great. I'm happy for him, all the leadership he's done.
Right.
And Coach, I guess when it's at the end, in 20 years from now, 30 years from now, what do you want your former players to say about you?
Well, hopefully that I was somewhat instrumental in making them ready and preparing them to be great husbands, great fathers, contributors to society and the community, and life lessons. Hopefully we help them become equipped to be successful in life. And the short version of my job, and our players are here for 3 reasons, and I tell them this all the time. Number 1, get your degree, graduate, so you have a future. Okay. Number 2, win championships, and number 3, for a lot of them, because a place like Michigan, there's a lot of talent, get guys ready for the NFL. And so that's the short version of what we're all about. And along the way, if we can instill some real good values in them, so that can help them through the rest of their life, then that's what it's all about.
And Coach, if you're talking to a CEO or another head coach or someone taking over an organization, building a culture, build a thing, what's the best advice you'd give somebody that's got to lead an organization?
Well, I would say that culture is instilled one day at a time, one decision at a time, one conversation at a time. I mean, it's a process, and culture is of huge importance. And don't underestimate or undervalue culture, because it's maybe the single most critical aspect of what you're doing. And so again, like I said at the onset here, stay consistent with what you're doing. Let your employees or your players, as the case may be, they got to know exactly what to expect every single day, and what how you operate, and just being consistent. That always comes back to that word. Players love to be treated consistently.
Hey, Coach, last question. I guess you got 11 grandkids. I guess if you had them all sitting around, you love them, you teach them. What's the best life advice you're gonna teach them?
I would say work hard and treat people the right way. I mean, it's pretty simple. I mean, and probably treating people the right way is number one in my life, and how I try to operate. And just do the right things, and treat people good, and I think you'll be okay.
It's great. Awesome, Coach. Thank you. Hey, best of luck this season. Big things. Michigan's a better place because you're there. They're going to be stronger for sure. The bench presses are going up.
We will be stronger, yeah.
I'm looking for strong, physical, tough. I know they're going to be because of you. And best of luck. And maybe we'll have you on again. And thank you for the time. Really appreciate it, Coach.
You bet, Jim. Really appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Take care.
Okay, bye-bye.
See you.